Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. This week, we have someone that is guiding audiences on a multi-sensory journey to explore distant moons through a science-inspired symphony and bringing them back home with renowned wonder. She is the composer and creator of Moons Symphony, Amanda Falkenberg. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, yes, it's my pleasure. Like I was saying in our pre-introduction chat, I was never the best at science, but I love music. So just the marriage of those two worlds is intriguing to me. So I'm looking forward to hearing how this all came together.
Yeah, I hear that echoed a lot, and it's been my own experience as well. And so that's why I think this is going to be a really fun conversation.
Okay. All right. So like just give us some background into who you are. Like how did you fall in love with music, and then how did you fall in love with astronomy?
Yeah. So I've been playing the piano since I was 2.5 years old, and spent the next 2 decades just really honing my craft as a pianist. And then in my 20s, I started dabbling with composing. And at the time, I was with full-time pianist with the Australian Ballet Company, and really it was a dance studio that was my entry point into being a composer through movement. And so there I was on the Sydney Opera House in the orchestral pit playing Carmina Burana, a very inspirational piece, as you may or may not know. But it's very, it's very theatrical, and it's quite, it's a very popular piece. But it was there in that moment, LaTroy, that I decided to resign from my position and go and go to new adventures in this composing realm and try and find my purpose, or at least find as far as my curiosity could take me as a composer. So I resigned and pursued a career as a composer, and then natural progression led to ballets, and then I fell into the film genre, which was hugely inspirational for me. And it was a natural progression, being in the dance studios, watching the movement of dances, and then seeing the movement of films and the emotional landscape, and absolutely just love that place. And 20 years after that decision, I had stumbled across my biggest project to date, which was the Moons Symphony, which you were just describing, and we're here to talk about. So that's how I sort of came into its orbit. But in terms of the actual content of finding these moons, came through a piano concerto. So I don't have any astronomy background. I don't have a science background, but I have a film composing background. And when I saw these moons, I instantly just felt they needed music and they needed emotion. And I knew I could do that as a film composer. And that's how I set about encasing their stories in a symphony.
hmm How do you approach like translating the scientific data and imagery into musical emotion?
Well, I have a phase that I like to call my incubation period,
hmm
which is where once I decided the moons that I wanted to showcase in the symphony, I took it upon myself to research their characteristics. It started off aesthetically, actually, in the first place, just by their geological landscapes. I thought that was going to be sufficient to allow my creativity to take over and translate that into music. But the more I started delving into their worlds, the science was becoming quite front and center. And it was something that I couldn't ignore. And I felt like it was tapping me on the other shoulder saying, hey, we want to be part of this journey. So I'm like, okay, well, at that point I wasn't planning on a choir to be part of it. But I thought, gosh, if I did bring a choir into the mix that could sing the science and give it far more outreach and relevance. And so I'm like, okay, then so my project just got more like bigger and bigger. And but yeah, so basically Yeah, I literally would spend 2 to 3 months delving into their worlds, and just like I would a film script, I wouldn't begin composing any music until I'd felt that I had captured the essence of the story and the emotional landscape. And only then, and it's always a big deal in the household, I'll announce to my husband and cats, I'm like, I'm going into the music studio. Today is the day I'm going to start converting this science into music. And so it really is a case that I just had to feel that I'd reached, like, I had taken on as much as I could, marinating in the science of their worlds, and then I would just put that to the side and then dive into the world of music and hope and just trust, I should say, that the science would come through in musical vibration, which it did. So that's kind of the process. And then the actual libretto was the other really fun part. So after I finished creating the music, I would then go take the music and go into another part of the home, I guess you could say, away from the music studio, and have all my science books there, and then I would convert the science into the libretto and then write lyrics that way. So that was the process, which I really enjoyed that part, actually.
Like, did you ever imagine beforehand that you could, I guess, play with music in that way, where you could create from a scientific perspective? And are there other areas that you're like, You know what? Let me experiment. Let me test music in this way as well."
I think first and foremost, everything was just so story driven. I mean, science has a story to it, and that was the best way to, so I wouldn't feel so intimidated by the process of transferring the science into this theatrical space. I really just had to stop the intimidation and look at it from that perspective. And from that, it just opens up such a world of possibilities creatively, because you're not, it's there's the stifling's gone. Like, so if you sort of approach it from the world of imagination, and just relax into the source and trust the process, trust that research is going to show up for you. I mean, that was one reason why I decided to take it on, because I knew as a film composer the power of music. I knew how to manipulate the emotions, and I just absolutely was committed to the task of finding a way to transfer that scientific story into a musical landscape.
Does does the creative process, does it just come out of nowhere, or is it like you're sleeping sometimes and you wake up and you have these ideas that you want to put on the piano, or like you're just out having coffee with family or friends, and whatever's being said will spark an idea? Like, what usually leads to this sort of creativity?
One thing that I really love about being a composer of the orchestra is the textures of the orchestra, the different instruments absolutely fuel my inspiration. So it's the different nuances and their own personality, if you like, is what really leads me to landing on some decisions creatively. I mean, there are a lot of film composers that do rely on what they call orchestrators. They sort of come up with a theme and then they'll hand it over to their orchestrators to map out, how it's going to sound with the violins or the woodwind section or the percussion section and so forth. But I absolutely would never hand over that task to anyone, because I'm so in love with that whole process of choosing the different timbres and the instrumental color, because that totally guides my decisions. And I think besides that, I really did have a good mapping out of what things I was going to target creatively from the stories that I had sort of marinated in. And then it was just the role of a film composer. Then, okay, well, how do we make the translate that to the musical sphere, if you like, the musical realm? So it was very structured from that perspective, and really I just keep going back. It was like the script. I chose the science. It was the script that was like the source of inspiration, my North Star in terms of, okay, how am I going to put all this into music?
Okay. So you collaborated closely with NASA scientists and astronauts. Like, can you share a story from those experiences interacting with them, and how it influenced the symphony?
Yeah, well, my first, I guess, big break, you could say, with the NASA scientists was by pure luck, really. It was one of these occasions where I just started researching, and I was seeing a lot of inconsistencies coming through with the science, and it was really bothering me because I'm like, if I'm going to, make this science fact adventure, not a science fi adventure, but science fact, I wanted to make sure that it was anchored in scientific accuracy. And so I remember being annoyed by some of the inconsistencies that I was seeing on the internet. And I turned to my husband one day and I said, gosh, I need to speak to a moon specialist about this. And I didn't know they were called planetary scientists back then. And so I'm like, I'm just going to find out a moon specialist so I can talk to and sort of see if they can straighten out some of these facts and figures. And so I found this one particular character, I'd like to call it. He was dressed up in like Eskimo gear, and he was talking about one of the moons I decided to showcase. And I looked him up and I'm like, oh, he's from NASA. And it was one of these like emails, like a black hole emails that you sort of write and you never know it's going to reach them. But I'm like, I just told him about my vision. I hadn't even started writing music at that point. I just asked if he'd agree to talk to me on a Skype and told him about my vision for the project. And 7 days later, he responded, and we did have that conversation. And it was riveting. I remember telling him about the ideas that I'd had to portray the particular world that he's actually the lead scientist of the Europa Clipper, NASA's billion-dollar spacecraft that's heading out to the Europa Clipper, moon of Jupiter, that has an ocean 2.5 times the size of planet Earth under its 200-kilometre ice shell. So it's a riveting mission. And this was like 7 years ago, LeTroy, that we were having those conversations, and it just got launched last year. So there's a longevity with this the Moons Symphony family of scientists, I like to call it. And so, I'd be telling him about the pizzicato strings, and then he would talk to me about the type of rocket they were planning on launching from, and the magnetometer instrument that the spacecraft was carrying. And it was just so wonderful. And you'd be surprised at how musically or how invested scientists are with the creative realm. I mean, it actually comes at a surprise to a lot of people, but they are so, just so invested in the arts and creativity as a whole. And so it was an easy sell to explain to him my project. And he, at some point in the conversation, he said to me, Amanda, I think the scientists would be really interested in what you're doing. And I said, really? Like, and he said, oh, yes, I think they would. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. And lo and behold, 6 months later, he had started to share my project with Cassini scientist, Dr. Linda Spilker, and I'd just given a TEDx talk at that point, a couple months, about my project. And she'd watched it and she said, right, I'm inviting her to NASA JPL to speak to the Cassini scientists. So 6 months later, I was in front of the scientists who I'd been studying their research, and it was such a surreal experience being in front of them and explaining to them how their scientific data had created this symphony. And it was, such a phenomenal milestone moment in the creation of the process. So it's been a ride. It's been wonderful.
Mm-hmm. How did you put together the symphony? Like, as far as the musicians, were you involved in that, handpicking every single musician?
Well, I was very fortunate where I were able to align the diaries of the London Symphony Orchestra with the conductor that I really wanted to lead the mission, which was Marin Alsop. She's a very, very prominent conductor in the US, and I just always just saw those two together. And it was always my dream to have the London Symphony Orchestra perform, partly because lots of different reasons, actually. One I didn't realise until 2020, which was London Symphony Orchestra also, not that this was an inspiration for my work, but they had performed Holst's. It was almost 100 years to the day that I'd booked the Abbey Roads studio that they had already performed Holst the Planets, and Here's the Moons 100 years later, which was quite poetic for me. Not only that, Star Wars, they were the orchestra of choice for John Williams, and the George Lucas saga, the science fiction movies, and here I am creating science fact of these moons that could potentially harbour microbial life. So that was just super riveting, and they're just a phenomenal orchestra. So that was my answer to your question. So I didn't necessarily handpick the musicians, but I got to have my dream orchestra, which was the London Symphony.
Okay, cool. Um, like going back to the previous question about talking to astronauts, like is that a dream of yours to go up into space? Would you like to experience it firsthand and really marry the two worlds in person?
I love you asking that. I do get asked that a lot, actually. And my answer is probably a little bit unconventional because, well, I can answer it in two ways. Well, first of all, not really. Like and the reason why I say that is because this might sound a bit weird, but I truly felt like I have been the astronaut composing the symphony, going as far as Uranus to compose the haunting world of Miranda, and that's what made me stumble across the seventh story in the Moons Symphony, LeTroy, and that's a whole other story in itself. That's how I came across the astronauts. And so well, then when it came to the time where I did get to speak with astronauts about the overview effect and seeing Earth from the perspective of, the International Space Station or the moon, and I told, especially the astronaut, Nicole Stott, who was my go-to astronaut for the seventh movement. And when I told her about my story about, just being out there in the outer solar system and being, scared of this world and just beaming myself back to planet Earth and realizing, oh my God, we have this incredible existence here on planet Earth. It was just so overwhelming for me. And it was her that was able to articulate that experience. She said, Amanda, you've had your Earthrise. That's how we feel when we're in this international space. You've had your Earthrise. And I still get goosebumps, even relaying just that whole connection. And that's how, I was able to, that's really the purpose of the seventh movement, is to create a musical Earthrise where people don't have to leave Earth's orbit to experience, through the power of music, the reverence that the astronauts feel when they see our planet from a very different perspective. So that was really, the driving force behind the seventh movement story.
Mm-hmm. All right, talk to us about LUNAR, Learning Under New Artistic Regimes, a program that's developed in connection with the Moons Symphony. How did you develop this?
Yeah, for the one of the first discussions we just had at the beginning of our chat, actually, for the reasons where, growing up, science was just always such a closed, experience for me. And I was, of course, so busy in the musical world, learning instruments, being part of choirs and those two worlds just seemed so far apart. And so when the science, I felt like it was tapping me on the shoulder as I was creating the moons and doing the research, I just thought, oh my God, here's my chance to finally meld the two worlds that I was so curious about. Obviously, music was the one that I, gave most of my attention to, but the science, so I remember always looking into the classroom going, oh, it just seems such a different, not accessible, and so here was my chance to bring music into a science classroom and vice versa. And so LUNAR is all about that. It's about providing a platform for, it's an online program that basically gives lifelong learners and the opportunity to experience the science in this multi-modality way of learning, like this interdisciplinary experience. So you would have the science that was such a huge inspiration that drove 100% of the creative inspiration for the Moons Symphony. You would have that unpacked through LUNAR, but you would see it show up in poetry and unpacked through poetry. You would have a cinematic music that is part of the LUNAR experience, which is the music that's storytelling just as much as the science. So all these worlds collide into one experience as you move through the program. And so music, poetry and science are all sharing center stage, and that's how I felt people could be metabolizing the science a lot better if they had, you know, the musical themes that help digest the scientific concepts. I felt that could be such an engaging way of relating to the science. So I'm super excited about rolling this out.
Okay. Yeah, because for someone like myself, especially as I've gotten older and I'm further away from academia and learning, science, I think this is a program that'll be helpful for those because it's intimidating once you're out of the loop and trying to play catch up. Like it's like, you know what, this is something that I've forgotten about, or I wasn't, an ace at in school, and there's no way I'm going to um, excel at it moving forward.
Yeah, and that's just it. You know, I've been really surprised. I mean, the obvious demographic for the LUNAR program is homeschooling or people who want to do extracurriculum enrichment, activities. You can imagine 7 moons. It's quite a trip to our outer solar system. But what surprised me is exactly what you've just said. The amount of 40, 50, 60, 70-year-olds who have, shown massive interest in the program, which is about to launch in December. I've been really surprised. I wasn't expecting that at all, and yet it does make sense, and especially how you just phrased it then. I was sort of thinking, the Voyager era is that, it was back in the late 1970s, but I think it's that as well, and that's how people have also shared that with me too, just another way to experience science through a softer lens, and that has been super exciting for me to know that the demographic is beyond, your 17-year-olds plus up to 70-year-olds. So I'm really excited about the impact that it's going to have.
Okay. And you said it's launching in December. How can we get more information and
Yeah.
be a part of it?
It is on my website, the Moons Symphony. It's got its own you'll see it there on the site, the LUNAR experience, and basically, it's going to be the interdisciplinary opportunity to experience these captivating worlds. And so it's launching in December, and people can just go to my website and sign up for their adventure, which will begin at the volcanic world of called Io, which is a moon of Jupiter. Very exciting treks, not Star Trek. It's going to be moon treks that I take everyone on. And so that's how people can learn more about the program.
Dr. Todd McLean provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338, or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
I'll give you a moment to, just further differentiate between LUNAR and STEM education.
Yeah, so this, my fun comment on this is basically the A is STEAM, which is the arts insertion from STEM. But I like to position my LUNAR program as the triple A, astronauts, art, and adventure. And astronomy. So there's a quadruple A inserted into the STEAM. So it really is giving, and I think if you look at the statistics, there's a craving for, there's definitely a lot more trending, a lot more appetite for this type of interdisciplinary modality of learning, and which is why I really want to, the Moons Symphony is housed in science, and yet it's a hugely theatrical platform, and that's why I've always been an educator at heart. I've always been a lifelong learner. I love to learn, and here's my opportunity to help others and join the adventure and unpack and just fill their minds. And I think the thing that I get so excited about is that these are science fact adventures. Like, this isn't something that's dreamt up from someone's imagination. This is like data being returned from legendary space missions, and how it's shown up in a symphony, and how people can interact with music and art, and the science, all in this one immersive platform, which I'm really excited to roll out.
Mm-hmm. How did the TED Talk come about?
The TED Talk came about by a friend who has been a long-time supporter of the Moons Symphony in Dubai, and she was on the board of trustees at the American School of Dubai, and they were hosting the TEDx Youth Conference, and people were told to sort of put forth some names and profiles of people who could be a good fit for this particular conference, and she put forth my name, and I was selected, and that's how I got the opportunity to do my TED Talk, which is composing music. What was it? To tell the secrets of the stars. I think that was the name of my TED Talk, but it's on the TED Talk platform, and that was it was just so serendipitous. I think that's a word I use a lot when I've been creating this symphony, how the chain of events just led to one thing to another. So the timing was absolutely perfect, and I got to showcase 6 of the moons that were dreamt up at that point. By that point, the 7th movement hadn't been materialized, so that came, I think, about 2 months later, and that's where the astronauts come into focus with the whole journey of these 7 moons.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to compose Moons Symphony Part 2, what celestial bodies would you explore?
Probably go out to Neptune, actually. Probably go to the moon Triton, which is meant to be very compelling. I mean, the thing with that is that space missions are just so few and far between to head out to the distant realms of the outer solar system. I mean, it just takes so long to get out there. And as scientists will say, you've got to be absolutely infatuated with this stuff, because you're in it for the long game, But I think exoplanets are one of my the 3D animation artists who I've been working with on this project. His big passion is exoplanets, and he's like, Amanda, when you finish composing the Moon Symphony, would you consider doing exoplanets? So I think maybe that might be something I tackle. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Do you after you finish tackling Moon Symphony, like, and doing LUNAR, like how else do you see everything you're doing evolving? Do you see music books? Do you see further curriculum development? Do you see movie scoring? Like, where's your head at?
I love this question. I see a 7 moon scented candle.
Wow.
Because that's well, and I see a documentary. Absolutely, see a 7-part documentary. I also see a 7-day retreat where people experience the moon, 1 moon a day. I have also been part of a completely other side to this, which is I was invited to do a full moon retreat on the Moon Symphony, where I took people through the energy centers of the human body, the 7 vortexes. And because what not many people know is that each moon has been assigned a certain chakra, a certain energy wheel, and rising to the 7th movement, which is the crown chakra. And so I took a whole bunch of participants through not so much the science, the more the spiritual science, I guess you could say, and how the stories that inspired each of the movements correlate with the energy vortexes of the human body. And so that's going to be actually one of my evolutions. I've earmarked that after I finish the LUNAR science curriculum, if you like. So yeah, I see, but one of my really big dreams is to see a global tour of an Earthrise tour, seeing the moons. Still waiting for the world premiere, and we're trying to identify where that would happen, hoping on US soil, to hear the complete live version of orchestra and choir coming together for the 7 moon complete yeah, experience. We've had it with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra perform what we call the symphonic version last year, which was super exciting. It wasn't with choir and it was half the length, but it still had an impact. Next year, in Pennsylvania, it will be the choral suite, which is still half the length, but it will be choir, forces, and symphony. So that's exciting. But then hopefully the third will be for the full experience, the 45-minute complete version of the Moons Symphony, which you can hear on CD, but to have it performed live is going to be thrilling, and we would absolutely love to tour that with astronauts and scientists. So yes, that is the big vision.
Okay. What does exploring new worlds mean to you personally?
I think like anything in the creative arts, I thought I was going to be an astronaut. I thought I was going to be an archaeologist. And I ended up being a musician. And it was only in my 30s where I realized that actually all of those things have a common theme of exploring new things, whether it's been hidden for centuries as an architect, archaeologist, or, an astronaut going out and experiencing, Earth from space. Everything is about discovery. And I think what has been so compelling and why I landed on that tagline, New Worlds to Explore, I think what it does is it lifts us out of all our daily mundanalities of life, if there's such a word, and it allows us to sort of see beyond our own planet and to see what is going on in our neighborhood, our solar system, and it is absolutely fascinating, and which is why I devoting 7, 8+ years of my life to share and amplify their stories, because it is, it's life-changing to know that there could potentially be life found on, the moon Europa. They're sending a spacecraft out there now, and if we did find the second genesis of life, what is that going to mean for us as Earthlings on this planet, knowing that we're not alone in this solar system? And that are big themes that come about exploring these new worlds. You just don't know what you're going to come across, and I think it's really inspiring and very uplifting to move ourselves out of the ordinary into the cosmos. And I think it's very very inspirational what these science missions are doing and providing, so that we as artists can then transfer their data into something theatrical, so that more people can interact with the science of these worlds through a symphony. And that's really what I'm super passionate about.
Is there a movie or a TV show, sci-fi, that it would have been like your dream job to score the music for?
I think it's fair to say I have found it. I found it with the 7 moons that I stumbled across, and I felt like I was the director and doing the casting call for these moons, and they were like my Hollywood leading actors. So I remember just feeling like, I remember Googling going, why hasn't anyone done this before? I just could not find anything, because I'm like, surely someone's done something like this for the moons before, and they hadn't. And so that's why I felt so honored to have been gifted this idea. And I was just so super excited to craft their music in this way. And so I feel like I found my dream, calling to, and the nice thing about this, LeTroy, is unlike a film score where you're having to deal with, voiceover and sound effects, I didn't have to deal with any of that. I had to house a choir, of course, but in terms of the carte blanche, creative reins for a composer, it was so thrilling to have the canvas to roam freely and craft the music according to what I felt these moons needed to be, their stories, how they had to be positioned in the symphony. So, but besides that, maybe Star Wars.
Okay.
Maybe the George Lucas. If I was going to pick one.
Right.
Yeah, especially the original, back in the 70s. Actually released the year after I was born, so it goes way back there, I'd have to say.
Right. So research-wise, amongst the moons, which one was the biggest pain to kind of build a story around? And then which one was your favorite?
Right. Okay. Well, talking about pain, there was a moment when, not there's so much a pain per se, but a challenge in
Mm-hmm.
terms of the musical resonance. So I'm one of these composers that, like, I have to feel like the music is doing something for me, because I'm like, if it's not doing something for me, how on earth can I expect it to resonate with anyone else out there? So I think it was like it was day 7. I just started composing for Titan, and which is the third moon of the symphony. And I remember, like, literally, like, my days would be spending 7 to 8 hours composing a day. So I remember by the 7th day, I remember sort of playing back the music that I'd crafted for that whole week, and returning to my husband. I'm like, nah, it's not doing it for me. I'm not reacting to this music at all. Right, I'm deleting everything. I'm starting from scratch. So I literally deleted a whole week's worth of music, and it's not for the faint of heart to do something like that, but I was committed, and I know my intuitive muscle enough, my creative muscle, to tell me whether I'm on the right track or not. And I wasn't responding. So I'm like, I'm just going to start from scratch. So that was a little bit hair raising, because I felt like, yikes, I hope something comes to me, and it did. So that was quite challenging. But in terms of my favorite moon, I remember asking the scientist, Dr. Linda Spilker, what was her favorite space mission. She's like, Amanda, I get asked that all the time. I was like having to choose between my 2 daughters. Like, I don't know how to respond. But I actually do have a favorite moon, and I've sort of alluded to this before, which was Moon Miranda, the furthest we'll travel in this, the Moons Symphony. That moon I'm very grateful for. It was very difficult to craft her music because it was such a tormented moon, but it led me to the 7th story that is all about Earthrise and seeing our planet from the perspective of Earth's moon's surface. And that experience gifted me that insight, because something had felt like it was missing for a long time. When I had settled on the 6 moons, I'm like, something doesn't feel right. And it was the Miranda's world that led me to that profound moment of realization that, gosh, Earth's moon is missing here. And I tell my little elevator speech, and I'll share it with you really quickly, which is the first 6 moons are about the scientific data collected from the space probes to tell of their stories. The 7th moon is about the emotional data brought back from the hearts of astronauts after seeing our planet from the perspective of space. And so that's really Miranda. That's why she's kind of up there with my favorite, because without her story, I wouldn't have found that 7th movement.
Okay. All right. What's something about you that people will find most surprising?
I have co-written a chill out album with my husband, and it's called Arabian Riviera. And so I've actually written quite the opposite to symphonic cinematic music, and crafted some chill out grooves with him, which I'm very, very proud of. So it's quite a departure from my usual music, and I had such a blast. My husband is a phenomenal chill out artist, and yes, we released the Arabian Riviera CD. He's about to release another CD this Christmas, actually. But yes, I had the opportunity to write a couple tracks on that album, which I had so much fun putting together, and it was that was well before the Moons Symphony was in my orbit. So I did that a couple years beforehand. But yes, and I still listen to those tracks, and very proud of them. They were a lot of fun to write.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you're an amazing musician, and no challenge is too big, but how challenging is that to bounce from chill vibes to Moon Symphony, just the different the different styles of music, and then what would you explore? Is there any other out of realm musical genres that you would tackle down the road?
That's a really interesting question. I think I didn't actually find it challenging. I found it so much fun. I was just having the world's greatest time, because I was exploring with because we live in Arabia, Dubai. So I was exploring with the fusion of bringing in some Arabic instruments into the mix, which is super fun. It was such a just a wild canvas for me to play around in, and so I didn't find it challenging at all. It was just such a departure from the big serious cinematic style that I was writing in. But I'd have to say, if I was going to choose what's a harder genre, I would definitely say, oh my God, yeah, writing a symphony is extreme. It's so much more challenging for sure, especially when you put a choir in and having to know, just draw upon your wealth of training for that kind of thing. So I would say that was, super, super taxing. Have to have your wits about you. And I think in terms of attempting another genre, I mean, I've done a lot of sound design music before, and I've really enjoyed that. I mean, I'm really up for anything. So, but I just happen to love the orchestra, and writing big cinematic style epic music is just my absolute all-time favorite as well. So, but I'm up for anything that's it's anything to do with music, really.
Okay. So whose music in your house gets more play between you and your husband?
Well, we're big fans of jazz genre, so we do a lot of Blue Note, and just it's a chance for me to sort of switch off a little bit, because it's a world that I don't know, and that's probably a genre I wouldn't tackle because it's just not part of my training. But I do enjoy listening to jazz. But I think we both have very similar musical tastes. He's also comes from a classically trained sort of background as well, so there's pretty much. Sort of Stravinsky, anything from Stravinsky to soundtracks like, Ennio Morricone, to jazz. So we'd like to cover pretty much everything. I'm not a big fan of heavy metal per se. That's sort of a genre that doesn't resonate with me as much, but but I'd say they're the three that we like to pivot.
Okay. All right. So we know we have LUNAR in December, but what else is next for you?
Gosh, LUNAR. I have, I'm just building out, I've got 7 modules to create. This is, I'd have to say it feels even bigger than running the symphony. So I can't see beyond LUNAR at the moment, except for what I shared with you. So I've got a lot of people really interested in the program, so it's inspiring me to just get on with creating all the other Moon modules. But beyond that, I do have a ballet up my sleeve that I'd like to tackle. That's not anything related to Moons Symphony, which I was going to do first, but then I stumbled across the Moons Symphony, so that sort of hijacked my time there. But yeah, and then of course, I just think I'm going to be super busy because I do LUNAR Live as well, which is where I will be on stage with scientists and small ensemble of musicians, and so that's also a big part of my outreach as well. So the LUNAR program can be a live version or an online course, which is what I'm developing right now. So I'm pretty busy right now with those kind of different formats for the Moon Symphony, which is super fun.
All right, Amanda, as we prepare to close, feel free again to plug Moons Symphony and LUNAR, and leave us with a parting shot.
Yeah, so just looking forward to bringing Earthlings on board our LUNAR pilot program for December, and those who want to explore new worlds to explore volcanic moons that have oceans, methane lakes. There's something in this 7 moon odyssey for everyone, and so climb aboard and be part of our mission. And moonsymphony.com, it's all going to be there for people to investigate and be interested to find out what everyone else's favourite moon is. And I'd love to take you on this lunar adventure. So come and join us.
Alrighty. Amanda Falkenberg, moonsymphony.com, LUNAR coming in December. It's been a pleasure educating me on your journey and taking that uncharted path, because a lot of musicians feel like there's only one way that they can get their artistic abilities out there, and you're paving another way. So kudos to you for that.
Well, thank you so much. Definitely. Trying to see how all this is going to come together, but I'm very committed. I'm very determined to really, just gives this multi-dimensional experience to everyone, so that there's something in it literally everyone can resonate with. And I'm excited to see the impact that, sorry about the space pun a little bit there, but the impact of LUNAR. And so thank you so much for this platform to share the journey with everyone. I really appreciate.
Oh, I love it. And like I said, continuing marrying music, art, and space, and like taking us out of this world to a new galaxy. So kudos to you. And
Thank
for
you.
Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings.